Hi, Adam. I'm expecting some more people to join, so I think we should wait another minute.
Yeah, wait a minute.
So, yeah. Hi, Bruno.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
I hope we get some
Nice to
more
see you.
attendees here. I could see as well. In the meantime, you can please sign in the attendee document. I will send the link there if you don't mind.
Sure. Second. Okay, I'm here.
Great. So the meeting is recorded, and therefore, of course, it's okay to have a presentation, even though we are very few people right now in the meeting. Let's wait 1 more minute and then we can start.
Sure. Usually, can you share which people join these meetings, like on a recurring basis? It's like people from CDF Foundation. How does it work?
We usually are like, I don't know, 4 or 5 people maybe in these meetings. And it's people from all over the CDF Foundation. It's people, of course, who are interested in the events parts of the interoperability work that is ongoing in the foundation. So I think it varies quite a lot who is here. I'm usually here as the chair of the group, together with Andrea Frittoli, who is also one of the chair to this meeting. So at least one of us is more or less always here. And then it varies some on the rest.
That's cool. Actually,
So,
I
yeah.
submitted a talk to CDCon to talk about CD events in the context of testing.
Great.
I submitted last week. I think the call for papers ended on Friday.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be on CDCon in person, but I intend to be there virtually at least.
Oh, cool.
So,
well, in case if we get approved, I hope you can see the talk.
Yeah.
Actually, it will be the work. So the work we do here is going to be the thing I'm going to use there. So
perfect. So where are you based? Are you based in US or in Europe?
So I'm Portuguese, but I just moved recently to Dubai. So I'm based in Dubai right now.
Dubai. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's quite a travel then to Vancouver for CDCon.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see we have Jadander as well. Welcome. Let's get started then. So Bruno, or I can just first mention the agenda. I hope you see my screen sharing here now.
We do.
Yeah. Perfect. So we don't have any action items from previous meetings that I have noted at least. This time today we will have a presentation from Bruno on the test cube tool. And then we will look into some updates from other groups if there is anything valuable to share here in this group. Then I will briefly just mention about the CDF awards that are being thought of right now and announced. Yeah, so the actual awards will be announced later, of course, with CDCon, but then the process of nominating and electing the people to get these awards is started now. I will mention about that, and then some words about conferences that has been held or that are to be held quite soon. Anything in particular you would like to add to the agenda? We can, of course, depending on time, add more topics in the end, but should we add something already now, or should we wait till we get there? Okay, let's get going then. So the presentation is first there. So Bruno, please, you can take over the sharing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess I will need to
Thank
stop
you.
sharing first.
So I'm gonna talk a bit about what TestCube is and the reason for it, what is the vision for it, and also do a demo and explain what problems are we solving, and also talk about why CD event, like what's the interest here and what's the potential. So, but I'll start first with just TestCube to understand the tool and what it does. So TestCube is a tool for test orchestration and execution in any Kubernetes environment. So it's to help teams automate and run tests there. The reasoning behind this tool is that CI/CD's system were not made with testing in mind. They were made to continuously integrate and deploy things, right? And there's this aspect which is the testing aspect of it when it comes to merging code or deploying to certain environments, and they can do those things, but it's not like their main purpose, or they are not adequate. Like they're not very adaptable, at least into the new times of GitOps and different environments and all of that. So it's complex to do this test automation. And another aspect of this is that the testing tools that are built are not built with running Kubernetes or running in any particular environments in mind. And it's not like a bad thing, it's like normal, right? When you build a testing tool, the testing tool is made to test whatever use case that tool is built to test for, right? Testing and running those tests in Kubernetes or automation and all of that is like an afterthought. It's things that people do on top of it after they have the tool ready for them. So what we do here with TestCube is basically we see what are the patterns to all the testing tools, and with different test types, be it API testing, UI testing, load testing, any type of test that you want to run in an environment. And we see that there are other parts, which is you have a pipeline, we have some things that you want to run, you have an environment, you want to run all of these tests, and then we want to see, okay, did my test pass or fail? If so, I want to promote my code to a different place, or I want to just see what's happening, what's the state of my environment, is everything all right? One part is the automation part of it, and creating and integrating these tools into your automation systems. And then the other part is seeing those things. And while doing this, you need to empower and simplify this process to all of your team. There are a lot of stakeholders when it comes to testing, because you have the developers that do the code and see the test. They are the testers. They are the DevOps team. They are even the product managers and product owners and like people from business that want to say, okay, is these things running well or not? Like what's happening here? So a lot of people have some stake in when it comes to testing, right? Even though like from different ways and different perspectives. So that's why we built TestCube is to be a Kubernetes native testing framework that is anyone can use just to run tests and like automate everything there and see what are the results. So it's not an alternative to a CI/CD system. It's something that you use with your CI/CD system to make the testing aspect of it easier when it comes to running things into Kubernetes. So this is the UI of TestCube. There are teams that use it just CLI and everything is CLI based. There are other teams that want to use the UI aspect of it because they like the visual side and they like to see things running and doing things in a visual manner. People like other teams like doing both. So just because it's more visual and it's easy for you to understand, I'm just doing a visual demo. So I'm just going to use the UI and not use the CLI because the CLI does the same thing. No, it's just on the terminal. So for example, here, I'm going to create a test here. I'm just going to give it a name. Let's say CD Events. And I'm going to run key6, which is load test. I'm going to maybe say load test. And cannot label. So TestCube tries to adopt the characteristics of Kubernetes, like the patterns, the way you group things, and the way it works. And so anybody that uses Kubernetes and is already familiar with the methodologies of the cloud native landscape when going also to test cube, they'll see those patterns and in a easier manner also adopt it. For example, we allow people to add labels to all the resources and group them. So if they want to add a label to certain kinds of tests, let's say tests that are only run on production, you can label all the tests, let's say production, and then you can say test cube, run all my tests that have this label. So there's like a way we do to to group things, and that comes inspired by Kubernetes and the way they handle that. So everything here also is a CRD. That's the way we also define tests in the Kubernetes cluster. So right now I'm just gonna just create a simple test. So what you need to do, create a test in test cube, is just give it a name. You don't need to give it a label. You just need to tell the type. So when you tell the type, what it does is you just tell test cube which Docker image to take to run the test that you need, because it does all the dependencies. For example, if you run a Postman test, you just need to tell test cube, oh, I want a Postman test, because that test cube will fetch a Docker image, which you call executors, that has Postman installed. If you want a key6, you need an image that has key6, and so on and so forth. If it's Cypress, the same. So this is what tells test cube which thing is going to fetch. And then you can either say that the source is a Git file, for example. You can put your Git credentials here. You can upload the file directly if you want to do something like quicker, manual, or you can even do even code here on the top for different kinds of tests. So for this example, I'm just gonna upload the file that I have on my computer, which is a key6 test. And what it does is just does load testing against an environment. So I'm just gonna create it. So this is a JavaScript file. And just before I run it, this is what was done behind the scenes. Was test cube put this YAML, this CRD, defined it on your cluster. So if you didn't do this manual like we did now, and let's say you are running this in a CI/CD system, your CI/CD system would deploy, like if you want to define this test, would deploy this definition for you. So you can either do this on the CLI, you can generate the same thing, or the DY. Then if you want to automate things, the thing you have to do is just make sure that these YAMLs are deployed on a Kubernetes environment where you want to run the tests. And this is all you need. Test cube is going to fetch the dependencies, is going to fetch the contents of the tests, and then takes care of all the things when it comes to orchestration. So right now, I'm going to run this test. So what's being done right now is test cube is scheduling jobs in a Kubernetes cluster right now that are running, like the Kubernetes scheduler is just scheduling them to execute. These tests on purpose fails half of the time. It was programmed to do that, so you can see tests failing and tests passing. So now they are all running like in parallel. And we see them so just finishing, and so we gather metrics about that execution, so the time it takes, the logs. For example, I'm going to click on this one, for example. Test cube fetches the logs from that job that's run on your cluster. So with this, it's very easy to scale to a lot of tests, right? Usually pipelines can be constrained in the amount of load they can take, right? And you can configure them to be integrated with Kubernetes and the job. So, but that's like a complex, or not a straightforward case, especially when it comes to testing. And test cube is made for that. So when it comes to scaling, if you want to run more tests, you just need to add more resources to your cluster, and everything here just runs, normally. So you can see these here. You can see the logs as they are being produced by your machine. And you just see things happening, and you can also use the CLI. And so this is like a dashboard you can use, and then you can use test suites, so you can group tests if you want to. Let's say you have a test suite that does API testing using any tool, for example Ginkgo, which is a Golang framework for testing APIs. You could use Cypress and test UI, and let's say after that you do some load testing using Artillery, which is a tool like key6 for load testing. So you can create a test suite with all of those things, and all those steps, and then you just tell test cube run my test suite, which is also all of those tests, and then does everything. If you want to change testing tools, if you want to add more tests, if you want to do a lot of things, you don't need to change your CI/CD pipeline. You just need to do the changes on test cube, because the only thing that CI/CD would do in this case would be only to trigger things, whatever you define, if you want to test to trigger from the CI/CD pipelines. Another feature that test cube has is triggers. So we plan to follow a model which is more asynchronous. So in a way that tests don't wait for a CI/CD system or a person clicking on a button to run. Test cube would know when to run tests. And that's when we start with events. That's why when events start appearing here as our opportunity. So we already built a functionality where a user can tell test cube to run tests based on cluster events. So things that happen in a Kubernetes cluster. So in this line here that you can see, somebody, like, this is a demo environment. If you want, you can go, like, you can put this URL on your computer, and you can go here, and you can, do things with this environment just for demo purposes. So in this example, when a deployment is a Kubernetes resource, a Kubernetes deployment with this label gets modified, test cube will run a test, and the name of the test will be sanity. So these are all the tests that were defined in test cube. This is a list of them. You can write them, or you can run tests based on label or based on the name, or like however you want it to be. So then what happens with this is the test cube will basically do not need to be triggered. You'll just listen for things that happen in our cluster, and based on whatever you want it to be, you can run tests. The most popular use case is when a new image gets deployed, a new version of your app. So let's say you have an integration environment. So there's an Helm chart deployed there with your application, and it's on version, let's say 1.10. So now we release 1.11, which is a new deployment with a new image there, right? So you can click here, and you can say when this deployment with this image, the image changed, so the image got updated. After that happens, it means like somebody made a new deployment to the cluster. So I want you to run this set of tests automatically. Just, I think I can do already segue right now why investing are important is we want test cube to listen to events, and we want test cube to produce events. The reason for this is to be able to integrate with a lot of tools from the community and to have a standard for it. Because test cube wants to be the tool that is used for tests in a Kubernetes environment, we want to be like create patterns and definitions of structure that then can be used by any tool that can integrate, or as like wants to integrate with test cube, or wants to do testing. So any CI/CD system that wants to do testing, any testing tool that wants to integrate with this, they would follow a standard. And the standard needs to be like a very flexible thing. So one is, for example, events related with deployment and testing would trigger these things. So let's say we can configure test cube to listen for CD events. So things that happen on CI/CD pipeline, like for example, an application got deployed to an environment, or like something needs to be tested, test cube could listen to that and then trigger tests. And then let's say you have Captain. So I'm not sure if you know the tool Captain. We were thinking about integrating with Captain, which is a tool like as quality gates there. So let's say test cube could be the source of truth to tell that if tests are passing or failing. Then, for example, the way test cube would communicate will be using events, and then the quality gates will be passed based on the events that are generated by test cube when it comes to testing. So there are other tools like before the test gets executed and after as well that would listen and use these events as a sort of communication mechanism. So that's like the vision. We want to be an asynchronous environment which has events and we have events for like a lot of things that people might find it useful for. Yeah, and then do like awesome integrations. Yeah, that's basically it.
Great, interesting to hear. So this sounds very interesting to me, and I'm looking forward to our continued cooperation, of course, in the standards for these test events then. So I guess I have a couple of questions. I think I saw on your website that the code is mostly written in Go, right? So you would use the Go SDK for CD events, if so?
Yes, correct. We'll just go for that.
Yeah, you would go for Go. Yeah, that's good. Perfect. So I was thinking now, we are, as you know, having the pull request there from Ole, and I guess you're involved in it as well, to get in these test events in CD events. And if you would get your talk accepted, it would be great to have these test events included in the protocol in a formal release, I think, before the CDCon. So
Yeah.
just to inform about that a bit, our intention is to release a version of CD events in time for CDCon. The content of that is not set yet, but testing events is for sure one candidate there. And then we also intend to have another release before that, which actually earlier was intended to be already this week now, middle of February, but that won't probably happen. The main thing to get in there is incident events, and we can come back to that later on. But so there might be a release quite soon, and then another one hopefully before CDCon, and that would be great to have this as a showcase then for those new testing events, if you would integrate those. I also hope that then the Go SDK would be implemented in the same time frame, so that would be available. So you could directly talk about that being out there released. That would be great. So I mean, some basic questions, I guess. Where did you first hear about CD events, and from whom, or how did you get to hear about it?
I think it was from KubeCon. We talked with Fatih before. So TestCube we are members of the CD Foundation, like silver partners or something. And so we go to a lot of conferences, and like we are in the area. And so I think we just, because the CD Foundation is like a brother or sister to the Quality Foundation. So we heard about you that way.
Yeah, I see. So you mentioned Captain before, which is, as you know, this is also an event, asynchronous events-based tool, but not really in the testing area, but rather, as you said, in quality gate area. So are there any competitors really to TestCube? I'm not too involved in Kubernetes implementation myself, really, and exactly, I don't have control of all the tools that exist, for sure. So
yeah, it will be impossible to have like, to know about all this. So there are so many. So TestCube as competitors, but not in a very direct sense. They are more indirect competitors, meaning like when it comes to a tool that is made to run tests in the cloud native way in Kubernetes, there's the only tool that there is. But there are other tools that in general allow you to do some automation, but not specifically for Kubernetes. Or there are tools that allow to run those tests in the cloud in an automated fashion, but just their types of tests. So it's like TestCube, what it does is that combines a lot of these tools that they do it just, more specifically for certain use cases, and TestCube is like more general. So instead of just focusing on some types of tests or some types of automation, we allow to be the tool that's used. Like, okay, you are running tests in Kubernetes, TestCube is like your the go-to tool.
Right. So if we then were to go in a bit more to TestCube, what is the, I mean, if you have a test suite of test cases to execute, what does the workflow, so to say, look in there? Can you define in what order to execute test cases and so on, I mean, execute this if that succeeds, or execute all these in parallel, or is there like a flow description somewhere here as well?
Exactly. It's exactly as you said. So right now, you can test suites are defined as a list of test cases, and you can either say when one of them fails, you stop. So basically, it's run test case A, B, and C, whatever you define. One fails, and you stop, and the test suite fails. Or you can also program it to run all of them, regardless if one of them fails or not, because you might want to also see the executions of all the other ones. And then at the end, we have the report. Like we have the list of tests, and then you see basically, you know, the logs and what's happened there. When it comes to parallelization, inside the test suites, you cannot do that. Like define, like let's say, run 3 tests in parallel, then wait for them, and then run these 2, and then run more. Like those more complex logic is not possible yet, but is being implemented right now as well. You can run tests in parallel using labels. So you can say, run all my tests at these labels, but there's no like built-in functionality in TestCube where you say, run this set of tests in parallel, and then these ones, and then these ones. You can do that programmatically from your triggering system, which is like, let's say you have a CI/CD system that is triggering tests. So you can trigger those tests in parallel, like from there, but not in the test suite level right now.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense, of course. Yeah. Great. So about this event trigger that you showed there, you said, for example, that you would like to run a test suite when a certain artifact has been deployed or something. Is it also possible today, or do you have plans to support triggering on like data from multiple events, aggregated data from multiple events? So if you would have, for example, one artifact being deployed and also reached a certain quality gate or maturity level or something like that, like a combination of different events, is it possible as well to describe such triggers?
So today it's only possible to listen to cluster events from your cluster and not conditions for it. And those conditions is like, I want my deployment and my config map updated. So you can say which event is the starter, and then conditions are things that TestCube can wait to be ready. For example, a deployment is changed, but the pod is still starting, right? So you can say, after deployment is done, I want my image, like the pod, to be ready, and then only then you can run the test, because the pod might not be, right. It takes a few seconds, right, for the pod to start. You can say those things. For the quality gates and the things you mentioned, that's our goal. That's what we are trying to work on, which is we want to first see standards or ways we can tell TestCube to listen for things from places and then run tests based on those things. But right now we don't know yet like what to look for and which events from which tools. Okay, so if you have suggestions, like tools events that please send it my way or Ule or like one of us. And yeah, that's what we are looking for. We want to integrate tools that produce events around testing. Right.
Yeah, I think it also relates a bit to how we create these events, what content to put into them, because there are discussions on should we add all data that we know into more or less all events, or should we expect the consumers of these events to make sense of a series of events instead, to get all the data that they need to do their jobs, let's say. So for example, if a deployment, an artifact deployed, that such an event could, for example, contain the ID of the artifact and the location where to find it, and maybe even the source change that was the trigger for creating that artifact, and a lot of different content. Or it could just be a pointer to this artifact that I already described sometime before is now deployed in this environment or something like that. And then to understand more about what does this artifact contain, or what are the aspects of the artifact, you need to go find the other event that was also sent before when the artifact was actually created. So that is what I was thinking about. I mean, we are discussing in different areas how to make sense of or how to aggregate events that comes on the stream to see and then trigger on those aggregated data from a stream of events, let's say, not just one single event. So that was why I was curious to see if you already have some kind of language to describe like triggering on multiple events that somehow depend on each other. But it seems you don't really have that yet then, but you,
Yeah, we don't have,
yeah.
like we are understanding what we need. So talking with people like you, yeah, that's what we are doing right now. It's just understand like how does this work, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I see, yeah. So you also mentioned Captain there, which we are very much aware of. They were involved very early in the CD event standard as well. And they are still very interested. We haven't seen them recently in our meetings, unfortunately. No one from there, as far as I know, but as far as I know, they are still very interested in integrating CD events in Captain as well. And that would be a perfect fit then for you to integrate with Captain and showcase that as well.
Exactly. It was Brad McCoy that introduced TestCube and Captain together. And it was also his suggestion that we followed his approach. And yeah, like he planted the seed. So that's why we are here.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Great. So yeah, I don't have too many more questions. Will you, by the way, talking about KubeCon, will you be in Amsterdam in April? Talking about.
I'm going to be there. We are going to have a booth, so please pass by there. Unfortunately, none of our talks got accepted. So I think we are going to apply to the Rejects conference. I'm not sure if you know about that one.
No.
It's like so all the talks that get rejected at KubeCon, there's like another conference made like right after for the people that got rejected from KubeCon.
Also in Amsterdam, or where is that?
I think it's online. I'm not sure. So you can see a KubeCon reject.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna post it right now. So one second. Here it is. So it's April 16 to 17. Yeah, it is it's still in Amsterdam as well. So it's like a fun thing. Some people tell that these talks are even better than the KubeCon ones.
Oh, I haven't heard of that before, but I guess it has existed sometime. Nice. Yeah, so I would actually be in Amsterdam in person, so it would be great meeting you there then.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So do we have any more questions from the rest of the group here? I see Andreas joined as well. You joined quite late. Maybe you didn't get too much of the presentation from Bruno there. But do we have any questions from anyone?
Sorry, I'm joined late. I'll watch the recording.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think this looks very promising. Looking forward to having CD events integrated into TestCube. Very much. Yeah.
Same. Cool. I think. Do you want to? I think. Do you need me for anything else? Or
no, I think we're done there now. Then, so you can leave if you want to. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you for presentation.
Cool.
And see you then in Amsterdam, if not before. Yeah.
Yeah. Deal. Let's talk about the PR. So I'm gonna work with Ule to see if we can finish that PR and we have it merged.
Yes. Perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
When I say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So we continue with the rest of the agenda. So I will take back to sharing here then. There we go. Now, so we had the presentation there, and the next topic for the agenda is updates from other groups. So I guess we are most of us are quite involved in the CD events group here, work group. So this might not be too many news for us then. But just for the sake of the recording and to have it here, I would like to mention then that we are working on the incident events and the connecting events and the testing events. Those are probably the three main categories of work items that we work with right now. And our intention is to release, as I touched upon before, to release the incident events quite soon, and we hope that there will be a formal CD events release, including the incident events, which are important for promoting that we can now handle all 4 core DORA metrics. So those will hopefully be released quite soon in a CD events release. And in parallel to that, we also work on the connecting events, which is about how to relate events to each other using different means. So we are discussing links a la Eiffel there, the Eiffel event protocol, or we are also discussing context IDs or trace IDs or global IDs, different names, workflow IDs, different kinds of global or global-ish IDs. So you're very much invited to work with us there. And the testing events is what Ole mentioned there before, that there is a pull request there for improving on the test events that we have with its own bucket now. That's about the CD events work group. For the rest of the groups and the TOC, I don't have anything written. Is there anything that anyone else would like to share there? I'm afraid I haven't been on any such meeting recently. Well, I was on the, what was it now? The interoperability meeting for a short while, some time ago, but not too much, I think, relevant for this work here.
From the DOC point of view, next meeting is tomorrow. I don't think there was any CD events specific. Well, I think Robert from the TOC, he brought up CD events.
Mm-hmm.
We can try to. Yeah, it basically mentioned that from his point of view, it would be very good to have CD events implemented in the projects, or at least in some of the projects hosted by the CD Foundation, kind of like eating our own dog food as a CD Foundation. So integrating CD events into the different CDF hosted projects, and demonstrate interoperability there. I remember. So yeah, that's something that also Robert is interested in helping with.
He mentioned that, or we talked about it, I know, in the POC that we could promote to have it in Google Samurai Code projects. And there are already such defined for, or there is one defined at least for Jenkins X for integrating with CD events, at least the proposal for it. For Jenkins, there might not be any such yet. And I'm not sure about the other projects if they have some GSOC initiatives ongoing, but
yeah, I tried reaching out to Jer and waiting for his reply. Jer from Fidelity, and he's also on the governing board. The first user story was also published, and I don't know if folks have seen it, but it's from Fidelity, and it mentions as project, it mentions Jenkins and CD events, and it states in there that Fidelity is interested in adopting CD events and integrating CD events with Jenkins. So we need to start the conversation again on how to make that happen in practice, and maybe trying to put some dates in front of this, because I think we've been discussing about this since CDCon last year, but we're not able to get some progress yet, partly because yeah, maybe we just had the first release, but yeah, so it will be really good to get some movement on this. I'll keep chasing Jerry and see if we can make some plan.
Great. So I added the link to the user story there if you're interested to read it. And as I said, it
Thank you.
mentions events and CD events as well. It's good to read about that. What else? Yeah, I don't think there is anything else really to bring up there as far as I know. So then you might have seen this as well, that there is the CDF awards for process for 2023 has been kicked off. So the nominations are now open since last Wednesday, and we have created an issue on our own GitHub project for nominating people for the CD events project. So we are expected to contribute one person, one award winner for this project. So each project in the CDF will provide one such person. I think except for the graduate project, which would actually have more than one. I'm trying to have more information about that. Andrea, what there's some more categories, I think, for this example, Jenkins and Tecton, right? It will be more than one category, I think, for rewards.
Yes, it's only Jenkins and Tecton because they are graduated projects.
Right.
So for CD events, it will be the same as last year, the most valuable contributor.
Mhm.
The only restriction is that the same person cannot be
Elected
awarded again.
Yeah, that's right. It says here, so graduate projects will have these 3 different categories of awards, and each other project will have the most valuable contributor award. And then we have also the top levels, let's say CDF awards, these ones, which you are also able, of course, to nominate people to, and then some of these, at least, we are able to vote on as well. I'm not sure if we are able to vote on all of them, but maybe we are. And some are more closed votes than others somehow. Yeah, so that's about the awards. So you can think about that. And the nominations close on March 3rd. So there are still a few weeks left, of course, for nominating people. And when that has happened, we should have a election period, or what do you say? Yeah, voting period until March 28th. So we keep the same schedule as the rest of the CDF for our own votes as well. And they will be announced together with CDCon in Vancouver then in May. Yeah, that's about the awards. Then just some words about conferences. There was recently a conference in Brussels, I believe it was, as it used to be, the FOSDEM conference. And there was a CI/CD dev room there, where Fatih and Ori were there talking about CDF. And I expect that they also mentioned CD events there. I don't really know, but I think they did. Then there were some more talks, obviously, around CD events. About CI/CD. I haven't looked into any of these details. Sure if anyone of you know more about those, if there's anything valuable that you would recommend us to look at afterwards now. I guess there are recordings of many of these available. Yeah, there's a recording on that one, for example. So, well, if you're interested, you can go in here and look at these talks, and if there's anything you would recommend, you can also do that to us, of course. I haven't listened to any of those yet myself. Then other conferences coming up, KubeCon in Amsterdam. I intend to be there. That's in 2 months from now. There is no CDF. There are no CDF activities officially planned for KubeCon there. So we will, well, I will stroll around in the different areas anyway. The schedule is announced, and as Bruno said before, he prepared something for that as well, but it was rejected, so there will be no presentation about TestCube. Does anyone else of you know any interesting presentations that we should look out for the KubeCon? I haven't really studied the schedule yet. No? Okay. And then, of course, we have the big event for us, the CDCon, the CD Foundation Conference in Vancouver, together with Open Source Summit. And the CFP has closed for both of these now, but I don't think that the schedule has been announced yet for any of them. So that's about that. Any other conferences? Then we can bring in the conference here that Bruno mentioned. Cloud Native Rejects conference. That was quite fun. So if you're interested, you can go there. Well, of course. I haven't looked into that more either. Okay, that's the current end of the agenda. But then since we have some people here who I know are quite involved in SDKs, for example, maybe we can hear something from Adam about the Java SDK, if you have any updates to share there.
Yep, it's pretty much done. It's just a few linting stuff. Jalander was talking about finding a way to suppress or kind of override the requirement of parameters. A big issue I have is that in the linting it says there's a max of 7 parameters, whereas a lot of them have 8. A lot of the events.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's pretty much it.
So would it make sense to then, as you said, neglect those faults and push it anyway and merge it anyway, so people can start integrating towards it, and at the same time maybe try to solve those issues on the side?
Yeah, I think it's functional with or without the linting errors anyway.
I expect so as well, because I know that people from Jenkins, for example, are more or less waiting for this. I think the Fidelity people we mentioned before should be interested in trying this out now and integrated it in the Jenkins plugin, I believe. So that would be good. I'm not sure if you have had any communications with them there, Adam, or?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. Good. So what else? Jalander, do you have anything to share in the CD events domain?
Yeah, one thing to share on this CDCon. So the proposal that we have made actually to have a talk on CD events integration with different CI/CD tools. I mean, it's a general talk about our experience and how we use the Java SDK and how others can use and they can integrate different tools. So it's all about the topic of how they can integrate different tools to CD events. It's a general talk about that. And you know, like we are also started working on the CD events visualization. So that is not like very much clear right now. So, but we are still working on that, and then I'm not sure like if we come to any a good shape, like the time we have a proposal accepted and things like that. So we may include some of the visualization part also there. But yeah, so not really now. So it's a general experience that we wanted to share, like how we can integrate the CD events. So that we have submitted for the proposal.
Okay. So would you think that there will be some time soon to start talking about these visualizations in a more
Yeah,
discussive
so
basis?
so we'll talk actually. So we are doing some groundwork like to show how exactly this works using the visualization first, if that's the way we wanted to use. So we'll show in any of the SIG meetings and discuss more on that, like when we have a at least a demo showable.
Okay. Yeah. That could be interesting to see if we have any, yeah, what the visualization of the CD events would look like there. That would be great. I think that might also somehow relate to the discussion about connecting events, how events relate to each other. Because if you should visualize a chain of events or a graph of events, or how we should put it, there needs to be some way to reference them.
Yeah, I
so
think
maybe
we'll open up
this-
the discussion once we have a good exposure on like what we are doing now. So
Okay.
we'll open the discussion. I think in the same line. I saw the issues and the discussion that is going on. Yeah, so I think we need to bring
Mm.
back the discussion when we have some good shape on what we are doing right now.
Yeah, that's good. Because I guess the providing visualizations is one set of requirements towards such an initiative to connect events in different ways. So if there are certain requirements from that work, it might be good input to the discussion that we have there on how to connect events in a good way. Good. Anything else to bring up? Anything else from you, Andrea, there?
No, nothing else from me.
Nothing from me anyway.
Okay, good. Thanks for sharing what you had there. Should I state here that Adam said this as well? No, good. No, so then I guess we can close for today. 5 minutes ahead of time. That's just good. So thanks. Good talking to you today, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.